A born nanny comforted a terrified little girl at the park, unaware her father was a millionaire CEO. He was a single dad. The sun was beginning its slow descent over the city, casting soft streaks of gold across the grass at Maplewood Park. Lily sat alone on a weathered bench near the duck pond. A brown paper lunch beside her barely touched. A second-hand paperback rested in her lap, its pages dog-eared and familiar, but her eyes hadn't moved past the same paragraph in 10 minutes. She was tired, not just from the long day chasing toddlers and wiping applesauce off walls, but from the unrelenting stress of her life. Her grandmother's heart condition meant constant medication and hospital visits. The bills piled higher each week. Being a freelance nanny paid little, and though she loved children, love didn't pay for prescriptions. This moment sitting in the park at the edge of evening was all she allowed herself. A few minutes of quiet before going home to cook dinner, call the pharmacy, and figure out which bill could be paid late. She tore off a corner of her sandwich and tossed it to a pigeon. That was when she heard it, a soft, broken sob, not the whine of a cranky child or a tantrum. This was raw, a sound of genuine fright. She stood alert and followed the sound toward a cluster of bushes. There, under the wide shade of an old oak, she saw her, a little girl no more than 5, curled into herself, gripping a stuffed gray bunny. Her hair was a tangled mess. Her cheeks were streaked with tears. Her small frame trembled, but her eyes were dry now, too scared to cry anymore. Lily crouched a few feet away, her voice low and even. "Hi, sweetheart. Are you lost?" No answer. The girl squeezed the bunny tighter. Lily didn't push. She knew enough about fear to recognize when words wouldn't help. She sat on the grass nearby, not too close. From her bag she pulled out a mini pack of cookies. "You know," she said gently, "I once met a little kitten who got lost in a big park. She was scared too, but someone found her, gave her cookies, and told her it was okay to be scared." The girl's eyes flicked toward her, just a glance, but enough. Lily opened the cookies and placed them within reach. "Would you like one?" A moment passed. Then slowly the girl reached out and took one. "That's a very brave kitten." Lily smiled. They sat like that in silence. Lily gave her a bottle of water and showed her a breathing game, lion breaths. Big inhales, slow exhales. The girl copied her, shaky at first, then calmer. "What's your bunny's name?" Lily asked. "Mimi," the girl whispered. "Well, Mimi is very lucky to have you." The girl gave a small nod, then scooted closer. Without a word, she curled into Lily's side. Lily gently wrapped an arm around her instinctively. The girl's trembling eased. She clung to Lily's cardigan like a lifeline. Lily leaned in, whispering, "See, lost kitties don't stay lost forever." Then came the footsteps, fast and desperate. Lily looked up just as a man emerged from the path, disheveled, frantic. His chest heaved as his eyes scanned the clearing. And then he saw them. He froze, his gaze locked on the child in Lily's arms. His breath caught in his throat. For a few long seconds he didn't speak, didn't move. The girl didn't stir. "She looked?" Lily asked quietly, prompting him. The man nodded, stepping forward. "Susan. Her name's Susan. She got away from me. I turned around for 1 second and..." He stopped, his voice breaking. "She was scared," Lily said gently. He dropped to his knees beside them. She hasn't let anyone hold her like that, not since..." He swallowed hard. "Since her mom left." At that, Susan stirred. Her eyes found his, hesitant. Then slowly she reached a hand toward him while still clutching Lily. He took her hand, his fingers trembling. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice thick. "I don't even know your name, but thank you." Lily looked down at the girl still curled in her lap, at the way she leaned into the warmth, trusting. Something stirred inside her, something protective, maternal. "My name's Lily," she said quietly, "and I think your daughter is one incredibly brave little kitten." "My name's James," the man said, still kneeling beside Lily and the little girl. "And this is Susan, my daughter." Susan didn't lift her head. She stayed curled against Lily, clutching Mimi the bunny and Lily's sweater like both were lifelines. James's voice trembled. "I can't thank you enough. I've never been more terrified in my life." Lily offered a gentle smile. "She was scared," she said softly. "I just did what anyone should, but—" James shook his head. "No, you didn't do what anyone would. You stayed. You saw her." Lily didn't know what to say to that, so she just nodded and looked down at Susan. The little girl's grip hadn't loosened. James stood and offered Lily a hand to help her up. She took it cautiously. As she rose, Susan let go but stayed close to Lily's side. Her eyes flicked briefly to her father, then back down again. James noticed. He cleared his throat and tried for a smile. "There's a coffee shop around the corner. Could I buy you something, just to say thanks?" Lily hesitated. It had been a long day. Her shoes hurt and she didn't normally go out for coffee with strangers. But then Susan reached up and took her hand, small and warm. "Please," the little girl whispered. Lily blinked. It was the first time Susan had spoken since they met. She glanced at James, then nodded. "Okay," she said, "but only if she gets something sweet." At the cafe, they sat at a small table by the window. Susan nestled beside Lily, quietly dipping pieces of cookie into a glass of milk. James sat across from them, fingers curled around his coffee like it anchored him. He didn't ask Lily about her job, her background, or her age. He only asked about Susan. "Did she talk before I got there?" "Not really," Lily said, "but she listened. She responded to stories." James nodded slowly. "She used to be so talkative, but things changed. Her mom left 2 years ago. No goodbye, just left." Lily didn't speak, but her chest ached. "She hasn't called me Dad in almost a year," James added quietly. "Now it's just James, like I'm someone passing through." Lily glanced at Susan, who was now tracing shapes into the condensation on her glass. "She's not afraid of you," Lily said softly. "She's afraid of loving someone and losing them again." James looked up startled, then looked down. "Maybe, but I don't know how to reach her anymore. Everything I do feels wrong." "You're trying," Lily said. "She sees that, even if she doesn't know how to say it yet." When it was time to leave, James paid. Outside, the sky had softened to shades of violet. A breeze stirred the leaves. They stood on the sidewalk in silence. None of them seemed ready to part. Then, without warning, Susan turned and wrapped her arms around Lily's waist. Lily froze. The little girl pressed her face into Lily's side, her small fingers gripping tight. "You made me not scared anymore," Susan whispered. "Will you be my friend?" Lily knelt, her voice caught in her throat. "Of course I will." James stood still, hands clenched, his lips parted, but he said nothing. He watched them, his daughter in someone else's arms, and something in him shifted. His expression wavered between wonder and sorrow, gratitude and disbelief. When Susan finally stepped back, James looked at Lily as though seeing her for the first time. "I owe you more than you know," he said, his voice rough. Lily shook her head. She just needed someone to see her. James glanced at Susan. "And somehow she let you." Lily turned to go. She felt Susan's eyes on her the whole way, and James's silence still hanging in the air felt like the beginning of something unspoken. 3 days passed with nothing but silence. Lily tried not to think about the man from the park, or the little girl who had hugged her with such desperate trust. She told herself it had just been a strange, touching moment, a pause in both their lives, meaningful but temporary, until her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her swipe to answer. "Miss Lily," a woman's voice said, professional but warm. "This is Adrian, Mr. Jameson's assistant. He asked me to reach out to you directly." "Mr. Jameson?" Lily repeated, confused. "Yes, James Jameson, the father of Susan." Lily's breath caught. "Mr. Jameson would like to formally offer you a position," Adrian continued. "Full-time nanny for Miss Susan. The salary would be 3 times your current rate, benefits included, and full flexibility around your grandmother's care schedule." Lily sat frozen in her tiny kitchen, one hand gripping the edge of the table. Her thoughts were a blur of disbelief. "Is this serious?" "Completely," he said. Exact words. She's the first person Susan smiled at in a year. Find her. Lily wanted to say no. It felt too sudden, too much. But then she thought of her grandmother, the mounting bills, the medications they were stretching to make, last the sacrifices her grandmother tried to hide. So she said yes. The next morning, Adrian sent a car. The moment it turned into the private drive, Lily knew she wasn't stepping into anything ordinary. The gate alone was taller than any apartment building she'd lived in. The estate beyond it looked like something out of a dream, sleek modern glass and stone and open light. A man in a black suit opened her door. Another escorted her to the front entrance. Lily kept glancing around as if someone would laugh and say it was all a prank, but no one did. The front door opened before she could knock. Susan came running barefoot on the marble floors, Mimi the rabbit swinging from one hand. Her little face lit up like sunshine breaking through fog. Without hesitation, she launched herself into Lily's arms. "You came back," she cried. Lily caught her stunned and moved. "Of course I did, kitten." Behind them, James appeared at the top of the staircase. He looked different today, still dressed simply in a dark shirt and jeans, but the light behind him cast him in sharper contrast. He was every bit the man people described in news articles she would later read, elusive, powerful, intimidating. And yet he looked down at her like none of that mattered. "Hi," he said almost awkwardly. "Hi," Lily echoed. He led her through the house not as a show of wealth, but more like someone quietly nervous trying to explain himself without words. The house was beautiful, yes, but strangely quiet, almost too perfect, like no one really lived in it. "She runs it," James said with a glance toward Susan, who was now showing Lily her bedroom, "but it's always felt hollow." Lily nodded, understanding more than she expected to. When they were alone for a moment, James spoke softly. "I know this is all overwhelming." "That's one word for it," Lily said, half smiling. James chuckled, then looked serious again. "I never wanted Susan to be cared for because of me, because of what I own or represent. I've hired some of the best people in this city, but none of them made her laugh." He paused. "You did that day in the park. She laughed. She ran. She held someone's hand." Lily lowered her eyes, unsure how to take such an intimate kind of praise. "I'm not hiring you because I think you're perfect," he said gently. "I'm asking for help from the first person who saw her. Not the headlines, not my name, just her." Lily looked up and met his eyes. For the first time she saw something vulnerable there. Not the CEO, not the millionaire, just a father asking for someone to help him reach his child. She nodded. "Then let's help her feel safe again." The days began to settle into a rhythm like a quiet melody building in the background of a life that had once been too silent. Lily arrived each morning to the sound of Susan padding through the hallway in her bunny slippers, Mimi the rabbit tucked under one arm. The little girl never ran or shouted, not even when she was happy. Her joy came in quiet smiles, in the way she'd slip her hand into Lily's without asking, or the way she'd wait at the top of the stairs when she knew Lily was near. She barely spoke to the staff, not even to James, only Lily. Lily didn't push. She didn't ask Susan why she wouldn't call her father Daddy, or why she flinched when doors closed too loudly. Instead, she just made space. She listened. She sat beside her during coloring time. She let Susan read stories to Mimi out loud, even when the words didn't quite match the page. Slowly, gently, Susan began to soften, but only with her. James kept his distance. He was always polite, always grateful. But there was a hesitance in his eyes, like a man afraid of breaking something too fragile. Sometimes Lily would find him standing just outside Susan's door while they played, listening quietly, but never stepping in. One evening, as Lily prepared to leave, she found James in the kitchen nursing a mug of cold tea. "She doesn't talk to me," he said, almost too quietly. Lily paused, leaning against the doorway. James gave a weary smile. "She talks to you, but with me, it's like I'm a stranger too polite to yell at." "She's not angry," Lily said softly. "She's scared." "She's been carrying more than most adults I know. He looked down at his mug. "She told me yesterday," Lily added, "that you don't like hugs." James looked up sharply. "What? That's not true." "I know," Lily said, "but she thinks it is. Somewhere along the line she got the idea that showing affection might upset you." James looked away, his expression folding into something heavy. "She overheard her mother once," he murmured. "Said I only knew how to run a company, not a family." Lily's chest ached. She believed it. The silence between them stretched. "She still needs you," Lily said quietly. "She's just not sure how to reach you. Maybe you could start with something small, like reading to her at bedtime." James blinked. "She won't want that." "She might," Lily said, "even if she doesn't say so." That night James stood awkwardly in the doorway of Susan's room, a book in hand. Lily stayed outside listening. Susan didn't protest, but she didn't face him either. She lay on her side, Mimi in her arms, eyes wide and still. James read anyway, stumbling at first, then finding his rhythm. The next night she turned slightly toward him. The third night she didn't flinch when he sat on the edge of her bed. And by the second week Susan leaned gently into his shoulder and fell asleep there, her tiny hand resting over his. When Lily walked by and saw them like that, James frozen, barely breathing, as if he feared moving would end the moment, she quietly closed the door and left them there. Later that night, Lily found a small crumpled piece of paper on the art table in Susan's playroom. It was a drawing done in colorful, unsteady lines, a tall figure with brown hair holding hands with a little girl, and above it, written in wobbly letters, were the words, "I love my dad the most." Lily didn't hesitate. She left it on James's desk, right in the center where he would see it first. She didn't leave a note. She didn't say a word. But hours later, long after everyone had gone to bed, James sat alone in his office. The only light came from the paper in his hands and the pale blue glow of the city outside the window. He held the drawing like it was glass. His fingers trembled, and then, quietly, without warning, tears slid down his face. He didn't wipe them away. He just sat there in the silence of the night, grieving everything he had failed at, and beginning perhaps for the first time to believe he might still have a second chance. It started with a walk a quiet afternoon. Lily had taken Susan to the little bookstore cafe downtown, the one with the painted windows and free marshmallows for kids. Susan had laughed, really laughed, as they strolled back through the park. Mimi tucked under one arm a tiny chocolate mustache under her nose. Lily thought nothing of it until the next morning. She woke to her phone buzzing nonstop, missed calls, dozens of messages, a text from Adrian, short and urgent, "Do not go online." But Lily already had. Splashed across gossip sites and clickbait headlines were photos taken from a distance. Grainy but clear enough, Lily holding Susan's hand, Lily crouching to tie her shoelace, Lily laughing as Susan pointed at something off-screen. The headline beneath them read, "Mr. Nanny is tech billionaire James Jameson, dating his blonde babysitter." The article was brutal in its implication. It painted Lily as a gold digger, a seductress, someone using the child to get close to the money. The comments were worse. "Classic move, get close to the kid first. Can't blame her. He's hot and loaded. Poor little girl, she's just a pawn." Lily felt physically sick. Her hands shook as she scrolled. Her throat tightened. All she could think about was Susan, sweet, soft Susan, and how this circus would confuse and hurt her. How James would be dragged through it too, his company, his image, his daughter. By noon, Lily had already packed her bag. When James came home early that afternoon, she met him at the door with her resignation letter. "I can't stay," she said quickly before he could speak. "This is going to hurt her and you. It already is." "Lily, wait." "No," her voice cracked. "I care about her too much to be the reason she's scared again. I'm sorry." Susan came running confused, hearing voices raised. She stopped when she saw Lily holding her bag. "Are you leaving?" she asked, her voice trembling. Lily dropped to her knees. "Just for a little while, sweetheart." Susan's face fell. but I was going to show you my drawing I made us in the garden." Lily choked back tears and hugged her tight. "You keep it safe for me, okay?" That night, Susan refused to eat. She curled up in her bed with Mimi and cried into the stuffed rabbit's ears, whispering Lily's name like a prayer. James stood outside her door helpless. The press did not relent. Reporters camped outside the house. Photographers tried to bribe staff for inside information. Online speculation spun out of control. The next day, James canceled all his meetings. He stood at the podium of a hastily assembled press conference, cameras flashing, reporters shouting over one another. He raised a hand and silence followed. "My name is James Jameson. I have never responded to gossip before because usually it's just noise, but this is different." He paused. "Lily is not my girlfriend. She is not someone looking for money or fame. She is the woman who saved my daughter in a park when she was too scared to speak." His voice wavered slightly. "She is the only person Susan lets tuck her in at night. She's the first person my daughter has trusted in years." Flashes from cameras lit up the room like lightning, but James didn't blink. "She is not just a nanny," he said slowly. "She is the reason I remembered how to be a father, and she reminded a little girl how to feel safe again." The room was still. James looked directly into the cameras. "So before anyone else writes another word, I want you to know she's family, and I will protect her as such." Back home in the dim quiet of the guest room Lily used to sleep in, Susan was curled under the blanket watching her father speak on TV. When he said, "She's family," Susan whispered to no one, "I knew it." Lily came back 2 days after the press conference. No grand gestures, no dramatic returns, just the quiet click of the front door. The sound of Mimi the rabbit thudding softly as Susan dropped her toy and ran into Lily's arms. From that moment on, everything shifted. She wasn't just the nanny anymore. James didn't assign her tasks. She moved through the house with the ease of someone who belonged. Not because she took up space, but because her presence filled the ones that had always been empty. At breakfast, Susan waited for Lily to pour the juice. At night, she only slept if Lily tucked her in. James started texting Lily pictures during his workday, Susan doing puzzles, drawing crayon portraits of our house, asking when Lily would be back. Still, despite the unspoken closeness, nothing was ever said aloud. They remained careful, respectful, bound by an invisible line neither dared to cross, even as the silence between them grew heavier with every shared glance. Then came the night Susan fell ill. It started with a small cough at dinner, but by midnight her temperature had soared. Lily tried not to panic. She'd seen sick kids before, but Susan wasn't like other children. She didn't complain. She just got quieter and quieter. Her little body curled up in bed, her cheeks burning hot. James was out of town closing a deal on the West Coast. His flight home wasn't until the next morning. Lily sat by Susan's bedside, sponging her forehead, whispering stories, humming lullabies. At some point during the night, she climbed into bed beside her, careful not to jostle the blankets, and held the little girl against her chest. Susan stirred only once, her small hand reaching in the dark and curling around Lily's fingers. When James arrived home at 3 a.m., exhausted and strung tight from worry, he didn't even stop to change out of his coat. He went straight to Susan's room. The light from the hallway spilled in softly, and he stopped. There they were, his daughter, and the woman who had turned their house into something that felt like a home. Lily asleep, her head resting just beside Susan's, one arm protectively around the child. Susan's hand holding both of theirs like a fragile link, as if she was the one keeping them together. James didn't move. He didn't speak. He simply stood there, chest rising and falling, with something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years, gratitude, aching, overwhelming love. He backed out of the room as silently as he had come in. Downstairs, in the soft pool of light by the living room window, he sat with one of Lily's favorite books, a weathered paperback she always carried in her tote bag. It had paint stains on the corners from when Susan had decorated it. Lily never seemed to mind. He opened it to the inside cover and began to write. Not a text, not an email, but a letter. Something real, something she could hold. Lily, if you are reading this, then I probably did not have the courage to say it out loud. So here it is in ink in my clumsy handwriting. You were never just a caretaker. You are the quiet strength this house didn't know it needed. The gentle voice that reached my daughter when I couldn't. The one who taught her to smile again, trust again, love again. You gave Susan back to me. But more than that, you gave me back to myself. I don't know when it happened. Maybe it was the first time I saw you wipe chocolate off her nose, or when I caught you dancing in the kitchen with her, like the world wasn't watching. Maybe it was tonight seeing you hold her like she was your own. But I do know this. If you haven't realized it yet, Lily, you've been holding both our hearts for a long time. James. He slipped the letter into the book, placed it gently on the armchair in her room, and walked back upstairs. That night, Lily stirred only once. She felt something in the air, something tender, unspoken, but didn't wake. Not yet. But soon. James did not propose with diamonds or flash. There was no candle-lit rooftop, no orchestra playing in the background, no crowd waiting to cheer. Instead, he showed up at a small, weathered house on the edge of the city, holding a bouquet of daisies and a tin of shortbread cookies. Lily opened the door and froze. He did not say anything at first, just offered a shy smile. Then, seeing her surprise, he lifted the tin slightly. "These are for your grandmother, too," he said. "She mentioned once they reminded her of England." Lily blinked, unsure whether to laugh or cry. Her grandmother sat at the kitchen table knitting a baby blanket for no baby in particular. When James walked in, he removed his coat and greeted her as if they had known each other for years. And then he asked, not Lily. "May I have your blessing," James said softly, "to take care of your granddaughter for the rest of her life?" There was silence. The room held its breath. Lily's grandmother looked up, eyes clouded with age but still sharp with wisdom. "Will you love her gently?" she asked. "With everything I have," James replied. She nodded once. "Then yes, you may." Tears welled in Lily's eyes. She turned away, but James caught her hand and held it without a word. The engagement wasn't grand. It was right. They chose to hold the ceremony in the park, the place where it all began. A quiet corner under a tree that cast golden shadows in the afternoon sun. There were no tuxedos, no stage, just a white picnic cloth, a basket of food, and people who mattered. Lily wore a simple ivory dress. Her hair, golden in the light, was braided loosely, a daisy tucked behind one ear. James wore a linen shirt and no tie. He looked more like a man than a millionaire. And Susan, she was the star. Dressed in a tiny white dress with lace sleeves and sparkly shoes, she held a small bouquet of wildflowers. Her curls bounced as she marched toward Lily with determination and glee. She grabbed Lily's hand and pulled her forward toward James, who stood waiting with nervous eyes and a heart wide open. And then, loud enough for every bird and squirrel in the park to hear, she shouted, "I brought Mommy to Daddy! I brought her home!" Laughter broke out. Lily covered her face with one hand, smiling through her tears. James dropped to one knee, not with a ring, but with both hands reaching for hers. "No diamonds," he whispered. "Just this life with you." She nodded. "Yes, 1,000 times. Yes." 1 year later, the city skyline still rose high above the park where it all began. But everything had changed. Lily now wore a different kind of confidence. No longer the tired young woman stealing a few quiet minutes on a worn bench with an old book. She walked with purpose and warmth. Her name was now printed on the door of a small but mighty office at the edge of downtown, the Park Moment Foundation, helping children heal one heart at a time. She was now the director handpicked by James to lead the nonprofit organization they had co-created. Inspired by Susan and the moment that had changed all three of their lives, the mission was simple: to provide emotional care, safe spaces, and creative outlets for children going through trauma, loss, or silence. The foundation partnered with schools and community centers. They built play corners in hospitals, trained caregivers, offered free art therapy, storytelling workshops, and gentle guidance. And in every welcome packet given to a new child, there was a soft bunny named Mimi. Lily made sure of it. Susan, now 6 and full of spark, became the foundation's unofficial mascot. She ran around the halls after school, leaving glitter trails and drawings taped to everyone's desk. She laughed easily now, hugged freely. She called James Daddy every morning, and every night she called Lily Mom. The distance that once stood like a wall between father and daughter had vanished, not with force, but with patience, tenderness, and time. At home, James was still the CEO of a major tech empire, but beneath the surface of suits and meetings, he remained grounded, present, changed. He was no longer the man afraid of touch or silence or soft things. He knelt beside his daughter's bed each night and read her stories. He brewed Lily's tea when she worked late. He built a garden with Susan on weekends where they planted forget-me-nots, daisies, and sunflowers. And sometimes, just after dusk, the three of them would return to that bench in the park. Their bench. One crisp autumn morning, James sat for a rare interview with a well-known business magazine. The journalist asked him a standard question: "What's the most pivotal decision you've made in your career?" James smiled. He looked out the window where Lily and Susan were laughing over a spilled ice cream cone. And then he answered without hesitation. "I've made billion-dollar decisions," he said, "but none of them compare to the day I stopped in that park and saw a young woman holding my daughter like she was already part of our family." He paused. She was just a nanny sitting on a bench eating a sandwich. But that moment it gave me back the two things I thought I had lost forever: trust and love. If this story touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you that love doesn't always arrive in grand gestures, but sometimes in the quiet act of sitting beside a scared child on a park bench, then please take a moment to support our channel. Subscribe for more soul-stirring stories that heal, inspire, and remind us of the goodness still left in this world. And don't forget to smash that hype button to let us know these stories matter. Here at Soul Stirring Stories, we believe that one moment, one act of kindness can change a life forever. Thank you for watching, and remember, the smallest gestures often leave the biggest marks on the soul.